Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video in the Arma April series of 2025. What I've got for you this time is a review of these. These are diorama bases. As you can see, they're quite small, designed for their 72nd scale kits. What you do get, all you get in the pack is literally the base, but on the back there are free 3D printed files for the some accessories. So we'll go through that when we pop over to have a look at the bench. I've got two sets here. One is the USN/RN escort carrier deck. Now the Royal Navy had steel decks, not wooden decks. This to me just looks like the US Navy wooden deck, but I don't know. We'll have a look when we open it up. The other one is PSP, perfect for Wildcats, Mustangs, you know, some of the a lot of the models that are in their range in 72nd scale. So really good. So let's not waffle on anymore here. Let's pop over to the bench and we'll have a look. And what I'm going to do is we'll review these, and then what I'll do is I'm going to actually paint one of these up, and I'll put that up in the video as well, and then we can have a bit of a debrief at the end. So there we go. Let's pop over to the bench. And here are the two packages that I have. You can see there, one's the flight deck, one is the sort of PSP Marston blah. So let's open up the first one, the flight deck one. And you see what you get is one just one sort of sheet, pre-printed 3D printed sheet. You can see there's sort of some sort of square jobby on the back. I guess that's some sort of strengthening thing, easy for me to say. And straight in there with a close-up, you can see that exquisite detail that's going to take painting and washes really well, as you will see very shortly. There you go, really nice size, perfect for a single aeroplane. This is the PSP, and you can see the sort of depth of the printing there. It's going to take washes beautifully. Very crisp. Absolutely lovely. On to the painting then. So this is obviously the PSP, and what I've done is I've super glued this nut on the back. It's also I've primed it in Mr. Surfacer Black. But what we can do is, with that stuck on the bottom, we can just do up the other nut, and we've got a really handy handle. Oops. Right, what I'm going to do now is mask off the sides. The Mr. Surfacer is sort of a satin black. It's a really nice finish on its own, actually. I could have gone over it gloss, but actually I quite like that sort of satin black effect. And then using this Ammo by MIG, the sort of thin tape, whatever that is, 4mm, we'll just go around and simple job just to mask that off, and that's going to set the sort of finished piece off really nicely, I think, giving that black border. Oops. Luckily it's not too sticky. Right, there we go. Now we're ready for paint. First layer is Tamiya SXF64 red brown. Now obviously over the black undercoat, it's going to be difficult to get a opaque coat, but I don't want an opaque coat. This is going to have lots of different layers of a few different colours on the base coat. This is some ocean grey, and I didn't bother cleaning out the colour cup. There's no point. We're just going to thin the ocean grey. There's an element of the red brown still left in there, but it's all going to sort of add and blend it all in. So now I'm just sort of in a cloudy effect, filling in the sort of more patchy areas, the sort of more black areas. I don't want any black showing through. And then in some areas we're going to go more opaque. And I'm just freehanding this, as you can see, just picking out some of the panels, sticking within the panel lines. But there's going to be so many layers on top. There's I didn't see the point in actually doing the masking. But the patchiness is starting to appear. Now the black's coming through because that detail is so deep. Just for a bit of contrast though, I did decide to mask off some panels. Back in with this sort of red-brown colour. And we'll just go around adding these panels now. There we are, starting to break up the surface quite nicely. Right, hands to hairspray stations. Actually, this didn't work so well, if I'm honest. And it's because a lot of the details recessed. So the top surface didn't really chip as effectively as I was kind of hoping. But anyway, so you can see I've painted over a orange for the rust, and then I'm just going over and sort of scrubbing with an old brush, and then we'll dab the water away. Now rather than doing the hairspray method, you could just go in with a sponge and use the sponge method as well. And if we just zoom in, yeah, it's kind of blended the kind of softness of the rust tones, if you like. So it has kind of made them a little bit more sharper, added a little bit of definition. But just working in big areas. And you can see how patchy that's looking. Right, onto the dry brushing now, and you can see I've got quite a few dry brushing tones here. The work so far has been sealed in with a varnish. And yeah, we'll just use this dry brushing paint from Ammo by Mig. It's brilliant stuff. If you haven't used it, I can highly recommend it. It's acrylic, and it dry brushes brilliantly. I mean, who'd have thought acrylic paint could dry brush like this? But it does. And just going over very lightly, and again I'm just adding to the sort of patchy effect, just trying to make it look random, picking up the highlights, going in with sort of greys, browns, some metallic tones. You can see in the background there, orange waiting in the wings. A little bit of a sheen there because I've used some gunmetal just to bring out that metallic sort of luster to it. Here's that rusty orange sort of colour. Now I write on my lids because I have all my paints in a drawer. There's no way I'm going to have a paint rack out here, not with the dust that we get. So everything's in a drawer, and it just makes it easier for me to find. And with this sort of rusty orange tone, as well as going over the darker bits, I do sort of concentrate over where the sort of rusty undercoat is as well, just to enhance those bits. So some scrubbing, some sort of longer strokes as well. Not forgetting the edges. It's really easy to forget the very edges actually, and you end up with sort of quite a bland outer sort of ring, if you like. So I made sure that I did go in and, you know, do some of the edges as well. Now for some washes. Two different types of wash here. Trax wash, which is like a really dark rust tone actually. and I use that quite a lot, especially on exhausts and things like that. And I'm also using some black as well. Now, as you can see there, I'm not doing a pin wash. I'm just sort of liberally coating it all over the place and then going in with some black. A little bit more random with the black. Mixing it up with a bit of the Trax wash, going back in with the Trax wash, back in with the black, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Diluting it with thinner as I go along as well, helping that to spread it about. I don't want anything too uniform. I want sort of areas that's kind of more washy, if that's like, that kind of makes sense. The whole thing is to look patchy and random. So, as I said, going with some thinner. So we'll dilute it actually in situ in some places. Thin it out. Quick blast with the hairdryer. Now, I use the hairdryer all the time in modelling. Absolutely brilliant. Especially for things like this, washes. Drying those oil paints as well. And then what we can do is when it's dry, we can just buff it and take some of that excess off the surface. And this will leave the wash in those recesses. But anything that's left on the top, I am spreading it around. So there is a very thin film of the wash as well. And that's going to act like a filter and blend some of these effects in. There we go. Varnish. So with some varnish on, we can go in with a little bit more of some of the dry brushing. And then we can go in with some oil brushes. Now going in for a dusty look here. Just applying straight from the sort of applicator brush. Back in with the thinner. And then what we can do now is just using just a little bit of thinner is start spreading this stuff around. Thinning it around. Now it's difficult to kind of imagine or see what the final effect is going to be, because when it dries it's going to dry lighter, and this is the advantage of having the hairdryer. You can blast it with the hairdryer and you'll instantly see when it comes up exactly what it looks like. And if you've maybe not thinned it enough, you can go back in. If the effect is too subtle, you can go back in with some more oil paint and just play with it. So here we go, in with the hairdryer. I've had this hairdryer cost me £8 from Argos, and I got it years ago. And you can see how it's kind of settled in some of the recesses as well as on the surface. Now we're going to do some splattering. So this is simulating kind of old spilt oil. And it's just the neat wash. And we'll just load up the brush and flick it on. Lots more oil brushes now. And we're going to make some sort of puddles, some staining. Do some more splattering with those tones as well. So as you can see, just taking some of the excess off, putting it in that little sort of clear plastic lid. Five Guys. And now just going in and wet blending it. So some more thinner on the brush and dabbing it in. But I don't want this to be like a wash. I want this to be stains on the surface. So just making sure it doesn't go too thin. Some of the fresh oil, that's going to give a nice sort of glossy sheen. So this is the more sort of fresh stuff going on. And coming in with the splattering as well. Again, as you can see, with this sort of weathering approach, it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer and blah, blah, blah. And so we go on. If some of the splatters are a little bit harsh, we can just go in and blend the harshness away. And there we are, some really nice oil stains. You can see the sheen there, that's from that oil, the oil paint. And there we are. Pretty much done. So, quick job. This I did in a few hours overnight. Easy to get rid of the nut on the back. You just snap it off once the bolt's screwed in. Don't worry about the scar on the bottom. You're obviously never going to see that. And there we go. It's all finished. Ready for a model. So, yeah, obviously not Arma because I hadn't made the P51 by this stage. But there we are. I really hope you enjoyed that. I'll leave you with some images and some music. Cheers. Bye-bye.